Wonderful. So, Richard, from your perspective, I watched a very good video about a week or two ago, and one of the greatest risks to kind of cryptos was actually governments and regulation and really going after the exchanges. What is your thoughts on that? And how do you see the next couple of years, working out? Because technically, this actually disrupts governments itself. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting, right? So I've spent a lot of time in the last few months talking to both regulators, people around the regulated financial markets in the U.S. I think the last 10 years or so, and Michael knows this more than me, the regulators have taken a light touch approach, and they really just wanted the innovation to happen. They didn't want to crush it with sort of overwhelming rules and limitations. I think now that we're seeing the amounts of money we're seeing move into the market, and this is even before the institutions really get serious about this, I think that the U.S. regulator, at least, is stepping in and starting to take a more active role. And they began this sort of with some guidance around things like the DAO, which I thought actually I kind of agreed with. I thought the advice on the DAO was absolutely accurate and correct. And if you remember, they took no action. The DAO, if you don't, for the people who don't know, was a decentralized venture capital fund where using the ERC and the ERC20 and Ethereum token, and you basically would vote on opportunities and deals. Someone hacked it. Actually, someone who helped write the smart contract cheated and put some money in there for themselves, and this actually caused a fork of Ethereum. I don't want to distract us too much, but what was interesting is they said this was A, a security, and B, would probably have been subject to regulation, but chose not to act. The next thing they did is they talked about promoters, celebrities who are getting people to buy tokens, and they said, you have to disclose that you're being compensated for this work, which I think, again, makes perfect rational sense. Then the third thing they've started to do is look at some of the real bad actors. So you've seen in the last few weeks a couple of enforcement actions, one in particular, around very fraudulent ICOs. ICOs that claim to be asset-backed but literally had nothing going on. And I think that, and this is my private opinion, but that's the pattern is the next thing they'll do is look at an exchange that is behaving in a way that should be regulated or licensed in the US, but maybe is not acting such so far. And they'll take a very gentle action, hopefully, maybe a more aggressive action to get them to align with US banking laws. But I think that the thing I'm proud about the regulator is they haven't really just slammed on the brakes and stopped like the Chinese and the Japanese started to do at first. And the Koreans as well. And we've seen Japan turn around 360 or 180 degrees and sort of really embrace blockchain. China, I think, is doing some interesting things with Bitcoin Cash and thinking about how they're going to approach it. But sovereign nations are going to have to sort of figure out how they're going to embrace cryptocurrencies and the blockchain and where it fits in their system. But at the end of the day, this is a global phenomena, and it's very hard to regulate this on a regional basis without sort of a global perspective. And anyone who regulates too strongly risks keeping their citizens out of the revolution. And frankly, you could end up in a digital financial backwater.
It's sort of, I tend to say to people, it's sort of like one of the reasons America became so powerful was that Europe had all the controls, and America was the free economy, and money actually moved from Europe to America, and it's sort of what you're actually saying in terms of the controls of what's happening over the next couple of years.
You and I talked about this. One point to make is anyone on this webinar who doesn't know what Bretton Woods is should go and research it right now. The concept of a reserve currency, which is a currency that nations use for valuing tradable goods. Bretton Woods established the US dollar as one of the currencies used for that a very long time ago, and it was a very arbitrary decision, but that decision has had a massive positive impact on the US economy. And it's my opinion that cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin, but possibly a basket of cryptocurrencies, will end up as a reserve currency in the next maybe one, but definitely within 5 years. And that move will fundamentally change the way money is treated on a global basis, and it's something to really learn about because it will impact your life wherever you live in the world in a massive way.
Wow, that's quite a statement.